Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of High on Paranormal. I'm Carlos, I'm your host. And really, thank you so much if you're listening to this show once again. On this episode, I have a couple of stories, again, from friends who, and families, who, again, I wasn't aware of these stories. And so they're brand new to me and very interesting. One it's called A Daughter's Love, and the other one it's called My Grandfather's Apparition. And so we're gonna start with my grandfather's apparition. This one it's going to be from Natalie, and this was like, for what she tells me, she has had plenty of experiences throughout her life, paranormal activity, and she's kind of like, I don't know, medium type. Like she's just open to it and very receptive. And a lot of things seems to happen to her. So she shared this one, which is from when she was very young. Kind of like open up everything for her. And so here we go. I'm going to tell you my first paranormal experience. This is the one on which opened up in this way. At the age of 7, when my mom's dad passed away, my grandfather, he was the light of my eyes. I cry for him up until this day, and I miss him just like if it would have been yesterday that we lost him. I was very mad with God for a long time because he took it away from me so soon. At that young age, I didn't understand the whole subject about death and life the same way that I do today. I was traveling, going to some family members in Maracay, which is a city in Venezuela, where there was a small dog that always used to be locked up when I used to go there to visit because I was terrified of any dog. And in that trip, they decided to not lock the dog up, but instead to leave him out so that I could try to get used to not being so scared. Either way, I was still running away, crying and screaming because of fear. I was dying of fear. And so I found a spot on the house where, being a 2-story house, I got into the landing of the stairs. It was kind of dark. And so I continued crying. And as I am sitting there, I raise my face and look up because I see this light. And it was my grandfather. He was sweetly looking at me, trying to say something to me. And in that moment, he kind of tells me, my child, your cries are not allowing me to rest in peace. Remember, you're the one who can hurt them, meaning the dogs. They can't do anything to you. So I was there, standing still, not being able to say a single word. But somehow that night before I went to bed, I didn't feel any fear or anything like it. If anything, it was the opposite. After that, that was more than enough for me to be able to wake up the next day, eat peacefully, and it was like magic. Like if I would have just lost all fear for all dogs that I have ever felt before that day. I owe it all to my grandfather and his love, and I hope that you enjoy my story. Thank you. Now, that story, it's easy to just take it and say, well, it's a very young child who is grieving the loss of her grandparent, and she is gonna see him, and it's normal and all of that stuff. But just like she says that she has had other encounters and other situations and experiences, I have to say, I don't know how to take it, because it's again, that such a small thing that you don't pay attention to it, but when you put it together with everything else, it kind of builds up. Because I never heard of this story, but she actually saw my grandfather after he had passed away. And I mean, given there was a picture of my grandfather on a wall in the house, as soon as you walked in, you could see it. But it was a picture of when he was like 40 years old, with his cap and gown and stuff like that. It wasn't like, the 70-something-year-old that you would see walking around the house at that time. And the way that she described him, and the way that he was dressed, how she described him, he was to the T. He was the green-brown shorts, the slippers or flip-flops, the weird, I don't know why, for a while, he would use like a rope to hold his pants instead of a belt. Don't ask me why. He had plenty of belts. But those things, it was like we walk by the living room onto the bedroom and stuff to go hang out, and she tells me, Carlos, I just saw your grandfather. It's the same guy from the picture, but he looked a lot older. He was dressed this way, and he had this thing, and he looked like he hadn't shaved in a day or so. No shirt, and he just looked at me as I passed from the dining room area, which is a room onto the side, that he had a window that you could see through as you passed by, and that's where she saw him. She didn't mention anything until like after we got into my room and we were listening to music and hanging out and talking, and then she makes the comment to me. So I mean, I have no reason to doubt her, because that already had happened, and that happened, 20 years ago or so? So I can't wait to hear what other stories she has for us. Thank you, Natalie. Well, I hope that you're enjoying the episode so far. Make sure to refill that bowl. Let's go on to the next story. I had to go to Valera. That was a city where the cardiologist was located. This doctor is the same doctor that used to see my father and my mother, and is a very trusted family doctor. And so I went to him, and I really didn't have an appointment or anything, but I asked if he was able to see me that day. He said that there was no problem and that he could see me that day, but it would have to be at the end of the day. I decided to spend most of the day going around the city and to just do a few things to entertain myself until the end of the day. I went back to his medical office, and when I arrived, I sat down and I texted him that I was back at the office. And he told me that he was finishing up with a patient, but that he would be right up with me. I was the last person in the waiting area. All around the hallway, there was really nobody in the clinic. Not even the receptionist was there at that time. I had already gone home. After a while, the last patient comes out, smiles, and waves at me, saying goodbye. I see a little girl there, about 2 or 3 years old. It seems to me like she's holding this lady's hand, and she also says goodbye to me and waves. I wave to them. I say goodbye as I walk into the doctor's office, and we start talking. Once I go in, and after the initial greeting, talking about why I was there and catching up a little bit, I decided to ask him, how does he manage to keep those kids, as young as the one they had just left, entertained so that they are able to not disturb their parents while they're getting this test that can take long and they can get bored? But that's when he tells me that that lady had no child with her. She was by herself. And at that moment I was like, no. You know what? Forget about it. Let's not even mention it. Because I felt kind of silly. I didn't want him to think I was crazy, but I had already said it, and we were both kind of in the know that I had basically seen a ghost. And it seemed to be a little girl who was accompanying this lady to get some medical tests done. Thank you for listening to my story. Okay, so this story by Ana Maria, I really like it. I mean, like I said, I'm starting with stories from people that I know, and so I have no reason to doubt any of them, because they have no reason to lie to me. And in this one, I love how she completely gets caught off guard about the kid not being there. Like that, it's very short, very simple, but very direct. I mean, you literally have a child say goodbye to you, and then you realize that there was no kid there. I take that as maybe that was, and this is just me assuming, but maybe that was the daughter or something like that, you know, that she may have lost and is accompanying her in that hard time. It had to be somebody loved, so maybe a guardian angel. I don't know. We don't know the lady or anything about her, so it's just assumptions. But I really like that story. Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. I definitely had some fun making it and reading these stories. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook or Instagram at High on Paranormal or Hub. You can also write to us at highonparanormal@gmail.com. Don't forget to press the subscribe button so that you can get notified and you can listen to the episodes as they come out. I apologize that I have not been able to publish the second episode a lot sooner, but well, life is busy. We have a newborn at home, and sadly I don't have the time that I wish I had to be able to produce as many episodes as possible. On the other hand, if you really enjoy this, just subscribe, and like I said, give us a review, maybe some 5 stars if you think we earned it. Well, I hope you have a good night, and until the next episode.